Hello, Soprano fans, and welcome to another episode of the Sopranocast. Episode 3, I'm Archie Mitchell, along with my buddy, Nate Maxson.
Hello, everybody. How you doing?
And tonight, yes, we will be speaking about the third episode of the first season of The Sopranos. And Nate, a lot more going on this week than there was last week. We won't jump into it immediately, but I made a faux pas in our last episode in saying that they gave back the truck at the ending of the last episode. They actually do it in the beginning of this one.
Yes, and I did the same thing. I did the absolute same thing. We just got rolling with our discussion and about how great the scene was, and totally get. But that's okay. That's fine.
Yeah, it's okay.
But
they
like
were
Archie said,
returning it at the ending of the episode, so that's why it gets thrown into this one.
Yes. Yes, they're almost like a two-parter. But like Archie said, this is season 1, episode 3, Denial, Anger, and Acceptance, which originally aired on January 24th, 1999 on HBO.
That's right. And we open up the show. They're returning the truck. The owners of the truck company come outside. They're like, "Hey, where'd you find that truck at?" And of course, Christopher, being Christopher, has to say, "It's a gift from Tony Soprano," and they ride off. Like one more needle before they leave. You know what I mean?
I did put a note down. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
But I did put a note down here when they show Chris and Brendan in the car.
Mm-hmm.
Just flash forward 24 years. The production values, like what's going on behind them in the car, it looks so fake. It looks so fake. Yeah. It looked like something from like the 60s or 50s or whatever.
Every now and then you see two random lights pop up and go away, and it's not what it should be.
Yeah, you can absolutely tell that they were just in front of a green screen.
Mm-hmm. Without a doubt. And again, the Brendan character still being that cocky, young, degenerate punk. You know what I mean? I didn't make that much on this heist because we had to return it, and this is ridiculous, and I can't believe they're doing this. And Christopher's trying to lend a leadership role, but unfortunately, Brandon is a drug addict, and he isn't listening to anybody.
And as we mentioned last week, we're both going to be very happy about the end of this episode.
Oh yes. I cheered back then. I cheer now. I told you I've watched these episodes 20 times each. I cheer every time I've seen them. He's the one person that when he goes away, I'm like, good. We can go back to normal now. So then we flash to Uncle Junior and Mikey talking about the truck being returned. And Mikey's like, he's not mad that the truck even got stolen. There were a few things missing. It's all good, Junior. Don't worry about it. And Junior's mad because he's thanking Tony for the truck being returned, not him.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And here's the crack up. Junior never even knew this truck got stolen. So he goes immediately getting in the way of just saying, okay, well, at least calmly didn't lose another truck because of my nephew and his stupidity. He's just pissed that he didn't get thanked. So it's, again, the building to the Tony, Uncle Junior, anger, frustration, and battle that's about to unfold.
Which is, again, like we said last week, is just one of the key plot elements throughout a lot of this television show, and the chemistry between the actors. You couldn't. Sometimes I read something about like this person was considered to play this role before this guy got it, or this person. And you think back and you're like, I can't see anybody else playing Tony Soprano. I can't see anybody else playing Corrado, And just to think of what could be or what could have been is kind of crazy.
Right. And when you look at all the mob movies that have ever happened, the guy playing Junior Soprano has actually been in a lot of them. He was in Godfather Part 2. He was in Goodfellas. So he's been a mainstay, sort of like the guy that played Philly Attardo later on in The Sopranos. He's been a mainstay as a lifetime mobster, whether he wanted to be or not. You know what I mean? He's always been either a bit background player or a major player in a lot of these movies and TV series.
Yes. So, and some of these guys in these movies and TV series, were legit involved.
Mhm.
You know,
Right.
I think Tony Sirico was in the mob, wasn't he? Well,
Paulie has said many a times that he was slightly mobbed up. You know what I
mhm.
mean? He doesn't give too much because obviously he can't.
Right.
But he does mention that he has friends who have done some undesirable things. So, and then there's a few different storylines going on here this week. Number one, Meadow is in a singing play or choir for school, and it's one of her extracurricular activities. That was a major part of the whole series, was getting Meadow into a good college. So she's a part of that
Yeah.
choir, and they got SATs coming up. Another storyline is, of course, the Uncle Junior thing, him and Tony battling for power. But then there's the Dr. Milfy storyline. It's got a little bit of an undertone to it because Tony goes there and he reads into a picture that she has, a portrait, and he says it's a rotted out farm and tree, and he thinks it symbolizes death. And she's just trying to convince him, I bought that on eBay.
Yeah, and he's like,
You
"What is
know?
this? One of your psychological tricks?" And I actually wrote down here in that scene. This is the first real, and because it's one of my favorite aspects of
Hmm.
Tony's persona. This is the first scene in the series so far where we really get a good look at his sarcasm. He
Right.
is such a sarcastic son of a bitch, and I
Without a
love
doubt.
it.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
one of my
Oh,
one
yeah.
of my favorite aspects of his character is his sarcasm. Because I'm the
It's
same
fun.
way.
Oh, me too. We both know that from each other firsthand experience. Uh, but yeah, his sarcasm. But then he also shows off his brain ability too. He's not just this dumb mobster because
Hmm.
he read into it. And in all truth and honesty, she does admit later on in the episode, well, yeah, it is meant to make you think. It's like the Rorschach test. What do
Yes.
you see when you look into this picture? But she just doesn't use it in that way. In her office, she uses it in the waiting room. So he did read into something maybe a little too much, but it was for the right reasons because it got him to kind of talk about his feelings a little more. He opened
Hmm.
up. So, and that's the great thing about his relationship with Dr. Milfy. Although he yells at her, he curses at her, he throws things at her, he always seems to open up every episode a little more. And you're like, wow, he's actually letting her in without really letting her in.
Right. And
You-
that's to the aspect of two things. First, like we go back to the pilot, whatever happened to Gary Cooper.
Right.
Yes, he's big, strong, tough man type, but he wants to open up to somebody.
He's fragile. He needs to get it out or he's going to explode. Right.
Yes, and she's very good at her job by getting him to open up to her. She's a great character because she doesn't back down to him. She's not intimidated by
No.
him.
Right. The
You
only
know?
time she's ever been intimidated is when he got really, really close to her. And even then, she wasn't intimidated as much as she was pissed off.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, yeah, she's the one woman that he deals with in this entire series that does not feed into his bullshit,
Hmm.
and doesn't let him overpower her. So, and I guess that's because she's a doctor, not one of his gumars or his wife or his sister or whatever. She has to be that outside aspect, which again is why I'm happy that it was a female in this role and not just some guy who might become his friend later on.
Right.
You
Yes,
know,
absolutely.
so you needed that powerful, just so happened to be an Italian woman to feed to throw his bullshit right back at him, like
Hmm.
a wife would do, but it's not his wife, so he kind of takes it a little more. You know,
Yes.
so then we go to, of course, we see our first scene of Jackie Aprile in his hospital bed. He is getting sicker, um, and he looks healthy in this episode. Still has all his hair. He's laughing. He's joking about Mikey coming in being the death caster because all Mikey wanted to talk about while he was there with him in the hospital is, did you hear who else got cancer? Did you hear who died?
Yeah.
And I think we've all had that one friend or family
Yes,
member
it's
who
all
reports death.
negative. It's
Yeah.
all the negative things.
my
Um,
dad, my dad used to say that about my mom's sister, my aunt Corey. Whenever she would call my mom, the ending of the phone call would always end, did you hear what happened? And my dad would say, "Is she the bearer of bad news? What's going on with it? Does it always have to end on a sour note?"
Yes, everybody has that person. And one of the things that, and we'll get to more of it obviously as we go through the episode, but one of the things that I wrote down here is as far as Jackie goes, this is heavy shit in especially for the Tony Soprano character, because you can tell that he loves Jackie.
Yes.
He loves Jackie. And essentially we get to watch Tony in this episode come to terms with the fact that Jackie's not going to kick out of this. You know?
He tries to argue the point that Jackie is still very healthy. Like I said, still has all his hair, his brain capacity's there. You know, he's great. But he understands the more he looks at him that, yes, he's getting sicker.
And that's what I was going to say is, do you think that the way this was shot, because, you know, we get the first scene with Jackie, which he has a great line when he tells Hesh, "Trust me, you cut a break being Jewish." But
right.
Do you think that because essentially Tony's telling Melfi about Jackie, that almost this first scene where Jackie seems like he's in good spirits and he's doing really well and he's strong, almost half of that seems like that's not even really what was going on. It was just Tony's perception.
It could have been his subconscious, right?
It's what Tony wanted to see, you know, right, in him.
A lot of what we see is him telling Milfy, so we're getting to see it from Tony's perspective, not from the real life, what was going, you know, the real actual scenes. So you may be right there. Yeah, maybe Tony was painting him out to be this big, strong, tough guy laying in the hospital bed, you know, right. And then when he finally breaks down and gives in that Jackie's going away, it becomes well, I can't paint him as healthy anymore, so I might as well just show you what he looks like. You know what I mean?
Right.
But also, Tony not having a brother and having two sisters, and again, going back to the Many Saints of Newark, I know I bring that up a lot, but it showed us a lot of the storylines that we know from the show in the movie. Tony loved Dickie Moltisanti, Christopher's father, and thought Dickie was like an older brother to him. So when it came to guys like Jackie and Paulie and Pussy and Silvio, those were his other brothers, that family aspect of things. So seeing Jackie lying in that bed was bothering him because someone he looked up to, an older brother type, was now this weakling that he didn't want to see like that.
Yes.
You know, he didn't want to picture him like that. So you might be right. It could have been his subconscious paying Jackie out to be stronger. But also, I don't think they wanted us to see Jackie sick yet, because obviously it wasn't, you know, he had cancer for a few months like before the show started, but this wasn't the main point for him to start being, you know, ready to die. We still had a little ways to go. So, you know, the guys cut it up in the hospital. They talk about different, you know, business ventures. Paulie mentions the Jewish guy that owns a hotel, and they got to go talk to him and what's going on. And then we go to that scene, which, and I want you to understand something. The area that I live in, I live around a lot of you know, Jewish people. So I see them dressed just like the gentleman is dressed in this scene. You know, the big hats, the curly ear, you know, sideburns, the big coats. But it's hysterical seeing these two men walk down the street of Newark dressed like this, coming to meet Tony Soprano. You know what I mean?
Yes, and of course the father is, and it's going to come full circle for this man. Hey, ZZ Top. But anyway, but the father is willing to let Tony in to the business if he can handle the situation.
Right.
The son is trying to warn him, you don't want to get involved with these people.
Right. And he uses a word that I knew already. I've heard the word said before. Gollum. Monster. You're creating a Frankenstein. But the reason that he's trying to waver his father away is you want to get the father, the Jewish father, has a daughter who married this gentleman who is trying to take over 50% of his business but also beats his daughter up and disrespects them and everything like that. And they can't just get a regular divorce. So they need Tony to convince him to give a divorce. And in doing so, he'll give Tony 25% of the business.
Mm-hmm.
And the son is like, why would you want to do that? It's still giving away a part of our business. Just offer him some money. But of course, the father being the father, no, we're going to take care of it. It'll be great. It'll be beautiful. And Tony's like, I'll see what I can do.
Yeah.
And we know where that goes.
Yes. I'll see what I can do means I'm going to send Paulie and Silvio to talk to your son-in-law.
Right. So then
and
we go ahead.
The I put down, it gets me every time when Paulie hits the dude with the bell. It gets me.
Oh my God.
Anytime somebody gets hit and there's some sort of a silly sound effect.
Right.
It's
ding, ding, ding. And there's somebody goes, say bupkis, Paulie. What? That's what nothing means to them. Bupkis. And I'm like, Jesus, why? Why is Sylvia the funniest part of the whole scene? You know?
It's just like you remember you've seen the movie Parenthood with Steve Martin.
Yes.
I think is it that movie where they punches the clown?
Yes.
And the nose honks.
It gets me. Noise, yeah.
Yes, it gets me anytime somebody gets hit with something or hit, and there's some sort of a silly sound effect. It gets me every time.
It's perfectly timed. It's perfectly timed. So we go to then Meadow being worried again about her choir concert and the SATs, and her great idea, Nate. At I believe she's 16 at this point. We need some speed.
Yeah, we need some speed.
We need some drugs.
And that is the mind of a stupid teenager. Right. And that's another great thing about this television show is that you get, again, like we continuously say, you get a little bit of everything. You get drama, you get the mobster stuff, you get the comedy, but you also get the family aspect of things and the fact that this is a real family with real family issues underneath all of the mob stuff. And, every parent worries about their kid getting on drugs. Every parent worries about their kids falling into these traps. And we kind of see Meadow kind of falling into that trap here.
Right. And it's not the first time, but it's the beginning of her thinking that drugs and alcohol are going to fix things because she needs to study or she needs time, a break away from things. Carmela pissed her off because, of course, we have talked about it in the first episode, the mother-daughter feud going on. You know what I mean? Carmela wants her to be perfect. She doesn't care about being perfect, But then now we lead into Carmela again, the storyline with her. She wants Artie and Charmaine to cater her event.
Yes. Because she thinks she thinks she is being magnanimous. Nice. Yes, right. She thinks she's being magnanimous in this situation. She's actually being very condescending, but she thinks she's doing something good because they've just lost their restaurant and they're falling on hard times, and she's trying to give them a gig, and but yeah,
and Artie's all like, yeah, thank you to the Sopranos. They're actually doing something for us. Nobody else will do anything. He couldn't even get his insurance yet for his new restaurant. Mm-hmm. And there's his wife, Charmaine, and it's like two bitter Italian women feuding because Charmaine's all like, oh, they're just mobsters. I can't stand them. Meanwhile, she grew up with Tony and Carmela. And Carmela's like, oh, I'm going to be a great human being and give my best friend a job.
Yeah.
But it was also she can get a pat on the back.
Mm-hmm. And Artie is the word I'll say is Artie in this situation is righteous. Yes. And the reason that Artie is righteous is he literally calls his wife out on some bullshit that she imposed on him during the pilot episode. Like, you tell me I can't take Tony Soprano's charity, I can't take Tony Soprano's money, I can't take cruise tickets, et cetera, but you're willing to take Carmela's. You're willing to, and he's not wrong. He's righteous in this situation.
He's not wrong. You're willing to go to their home and serve. Now, he's not wrong because how many times did the cops and the FBI bust into his home and with a warrant and look for things? So if they would have done it during this gala event that Carmella was throwing, Artie and Charmaine would have been involved in it.
Right.
So you're still putting us in front and center of everything they've got going on, but it's not okay to take some plane tickets or some money or get into business with him because he's a mobster. You know, that I've always likened this, and I want everybody to understand. I am a Christian, so I'm not defaming religion in any way, but there are certain churches in this world who will tell people your money's evil because you know the job that you did to get it is bad, right?
Right.
But then the turnaround is, but don't forget to give your 10% tithes.
Right.
So you want my money in the tithe box, but yet it was evil the way I got my money, which isn't. You know what I mean? So in the same regard, the Sopranos are evil, but hey, we can make some money off of them because we're going to cook. No big deal.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yes.
So,
hypocrisy is a funny thing.
and it shows its face in a lot of these first early episodes. You know, Charmaine and Carmella are trying to plan things. Meadow is now at Christopher's trying to score, which Brandon's all for because, as we mentioned, Brandon's a douchebag.
Yes. Yeah. And he's even more douchey in this scene because this
He's
guy's
like 22 and they're 16.
Yeah, they're like 16 years old, and this 22-year-old, who, you ever seen a guy with a more punchable fucking face?
Right. Right. When he's hitting on these girls and he's whispering to them, and Adriana's telling him to leave him alone, I'm like, can she just smack him and get it over with? You know?
And I think
So,
I can't remember because she wasn't in my notes. Did we see Adriana in episode 2?
No.
I
No, we
didn't
do
think
not. We
so.
see her,
yes.
as you mentioned.
Because I know we
just,
saw her in the pilot as a hostess.
Right.
And
But
then,
at a New York restaurant, not at a Vesuvio, at a New York restaurant. And then here, she's still a hostess, I guess, at any restaurant, because she doesn't go to work for Artie until he opens Vesuvio too. But here, she's just getting ready to go to work, and Christopher and Brendan are getting high and wondering what they're going to do with their day.
Yeah.
You know, and then Meadow strolls in. We're like, we're going to go cab. You want to let us score? He's like, no, your father would kill me, which anybody would do that. You know what I mean? If I'm close with your dad, I'm not giving you drugs. I'm not giving you alcohol. I'm not taking you for a ride anywhere that's illegal. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You're like my baby sister, basically.
And the funny thing is that in this situation, as stupid as it is, these girls want the speed. Teenagers are stupid.
Right.
And Adriana has a point. If you don't give it to them, they're going to go somewhere that you don't want them to get it.
They mentioned, I almost called it Carmella. The daughter, Meadow, says, we'll go down to Jefferson Avenue. Now, for those of you who have never been to New Jersey,
me,
and I'm assuming a lot of our listeners, Jefferson Avenue is in Newark. Mm-hmm. And Newark, up until just about recently, because what we're going to find out later on that they're beautifying Newark on The Sopranos, that just finally happened in the last 5 years.
Okay.
But up until then, Jefferson Avenue looked like somebody took a garbage dump and put some houses there. And there was nothing but crack dealers around the streets and hookers. And yeah, that's about it. Yeah. Even in the daytime, it was not fun to go there. My dad used to tell me, if you could avoid Jefferson Avenue in Newark, do it. If you got to go down it, find an alternate route. So it was not a fun place. Adriana is correct. It's a bad place to be.
It's a seedy place, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes. So, yeah, so she's trying to talk Christopher into giving her drugs. Or Adriana is now. He's like, isn't it better to get it from you because you have clean stuff? Which, I guess she's right. I understand her point. But shouldn't we just, maybe... Because Christopher's thinking about calling Tony and telling him, hey, your daughter's drugs.
Yeah, Adriana's definitely playing the lesser of two evils game here.
Right. Because Tony would have killed somebody. We just don't know who. So, from there, we go to, hold on, let me look at my notes real quick. After Brandon hits on them again, mind you, again, they're 16, he's 22. And I'm not a very favorable person when it comes to pedo humor or things of that nature. That pisses me off. I have children. You have daughters this age. I have daughters this age. It's not a funny thing to see.
Right. Yes.
So from there, though, we go back to Jackie in the hospital. He's still looking okay. And Tony brought him a gift.
Yes, he did.
Do you want to let them know what he brought him?
He brought him a young lady from the Bada Bing.
Yes.
It's a fun scene because the funniest part about the whole thing is probably because he's all drugged up and everything. It kind of takes Jackie. Right. It takes Jackie much longer than it should for him to catch on what the fuck is going on.
And then when he finally starts laughing, you can tell he might have been really laughing from the heart.
Yeah,
because he couldn't stop.
with all the innuendo and stuff that comes out, it literally takes this woman's tits flopping out for him to realize what the hell is going on. Yeah,
right. And at the same time, a real nurse tries to walk in, so it makes it even worse.
Yeah, Tony's like private party. Right.
So,
but we go from that happy, like I said on the. Earlier on, just how much you can tell Tony loves Jackie. We go from that moment between two friends that's kind of a happy thing. And when he's in Melfi's office after that, he is so angry about it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because she's bringing it out of him, asking him certain things that he isn't prepared to answer. You know, everybody knows this. When you're getting ready to lose somebody and you know they're about to go, you don't want to answer certain questions about that person. Mm-hmm. You want to remember the good things. You want to remember the fun times. And that's what he was trying to elicit when he told her, I brought him a stripper. You know what I mean? I was trying to keep his mind off of things. Melfi being Melfi went to the more darker part of things. It was like, well, what do you think is going to happen? You know, how fast is it spreading? So he gets pissed off. I would have done the same thing. You know, it just... but I guess, again, that's what Melfi had to bring out of him to make him understand, you know, not everybody is immortal.
Right.
We're all going to die, you know. And then from that blow up, we go to Christopher sneaking into the Soprano household and giving Meadow her speed so she could study.
And, yeah, I mean... Slippery slope.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where you, like you were talking about, it's good that they're so good in the show at hitting a nerve for the viewer, you know, for you and me as fathers of girls, you're like, God damn it, Christopher.
Right. Because his lie when Carmela walks in is like, oh, by the way, tell your friend Hunter that Brandon wants her phone number, and then walks Carmela, and she's like, don't you dare give that punk that little girl's number. And I'm like, thank you. I'm glad it was finally said. She's a little girl, you know.
Yes.
So then we go to Artie and Charmaine arguing, which we talked about the hypocrisy of working for the Sopranos, but not taking money from them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, which I agree. It's pure stupidity because it's still the same money. It's still the same business.
Right.
And then we go to Carmela's shindig. And Carmela proceeds to do something that Charmaine deems derogatory.
Yeah, she pretty much gives her the garçon,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like, come here, servant.
Right. She beckons her over.
They wouldn't have used this word in 1999 because I don't think it existed yet. But this was a trigger moment for Charmaine.
Yes. Oh, yes. It brought out a lot of problems. But it's like at that moment, Charmaine chose violence because she knew she was going to get back at Carmela later on.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And then we come to the most playful, funniest part of this episode.
Yes,
Tony
absolutely.
and Artie having a food fight.
Yes, I wrote that down. I love the food fight because that is brothers or friends, because friends can also be your brothers. Aaron is my brother, but you are also my brother because you are my friend.
Right.
This is the kind of things that we do. Maybe you and your brother or you and your best friend have a bit of a conflict.
Right.
Maybe there's an underlying issue going on. So I just throw a piece of prosciutto.
Right.
And it sticks to
or a rice ball.
Yeah, and it sticks to your head. And then okay, so we got out our anger. Now it's just fun, and now we're having fun again. And it's a great moment. It's a great moment with Artie and Tony. This is actually Artie and Tony, like for all the people that I know that love this show, and there's lots of them that I discuss it with, and et cetera, et cetera. That's really a dynamic and a friendship on this show that doesn't get enough attention.
I agree, because it had so many ups and downs.
Yeah.
This was a small up and down because, they got pissed off at each other. They Tony was trying to talk Artie out of being doubtful and pissed off and whatever. And then they got into the food fight, which was kind of their way of saying, look, I'm mad at you, but this is not the ending of the world. We're still friends.
Right.
Because we're going to act like children. And Carmela thinks this is great. She's smiling while watching them. Meanwhile, Charmaine is sitting off somewhere in the corner like a gargoyle, pissed off at the world, thinking, how am I going to blow this up tomorrow?
I think the dynamic between Artie and Tony is so great because in the grand scheme of things, Artie is the only person in Tony's life that he's close with that isn't connected.
Right.
I mean, Artie's connected to Tony, but you know what I mean.
Artie was the only legal guy. He didn't have his hands on anything Tony was doing. So if Artie told Tony, hey, Tony, you're fucking up, he knew it came from a place of love, not from one of his, henchmen who just felt like they weren't being respected. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Right.
So he knew where it was coming from. And I think that's why he always tried to fix the relationship no matter what would happen, because he understood this is the only real balance I have in my life outside of my wife and children.
Right.
So. And then we go to the beating of the Jewish son-in-law who refuses to give the divorce to the Jewish father-in-law.
This is all so dramatic, but also hilarious.
Yes.
I mean, when they're trying to throw him in the trunk and they can't get him in on the first try. This guy is like nothing. You can tell even 3 episodes into this show. Right. This stubborn Jewish guy is like the biggest challenge these guys have ever had.
He has a small point, because he tells them, I made that hotel what it is. I spend for my wife to get her dresses, her clothes, her jewelry for vacations. Why should I just walk away with nothing? He's not even offering me a payoff to walk away. So you understand his point slightly, but then they just start beating the crap out of him. And he's taking it. That's the bad part. He's literally telling them, give me more. When Tony walks in to them beating him up.
I wrote this down. I wrote it down word for word, because I think it's one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite scenes of the first season of this show. Because the guys have recognized this guy is stubborn as fuck. They've come up against a challenge here, and he says to Tony, "You ever heard of the Masada? For 2 years, 900 Jews held their own against 15,000 Roman soldiers. They chose death before enslavement. The Romans, where are they now?" And Tony says, "You're looking at him, asshole."
Right.
It's so funny. It's so funny. You're looking at him, asshole.
You're looking at him. Right. He tried to come off so hard in that point when he tells them of that story. And then Tony just comes back with even more sarcasm that it's like, yes. But then Tony being Tony, let me call Hetch.
Let me call Hetch.
I need an outsider's opinion.
And Hesh tells him, I tried to warn you. I tried to warn you about these people.
Right. Because Hesh is Jewish. But Hesh is Jewish. They are, I believe the word is Orthodox, or I'm not sure of the exact, so he understood
they're
their
essentially,
stubbornness.
Yeah, I was going to say they're essentially like Hesh is Jewish, but these people are like hardcore Jewish. These people are like, and I don't want to compare it to, but these people are like Al Qaeda Jewish. Like they're extremists.
They observe the Sabbath. They don't eat meat on certain days. They don't mix dairy with meat. Meanwhile, Hesh will have a cheeseburger and a bottle of beer on Saturday, Sunday, and Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You know what I mean? So Hesh is more modern. So I tried to warn you. But then when he tells him, remind him of his bris, I'm just like, are they about to show what I think they're going to show?
Yeah, same. I need to fast forward like 5 minutes.
Right. And then you find out that they just made him think they were going to do it, which he was all for. You know what I mean? Up until I guess the last second, he was all for it because he was a stubborn guy and he wasn't giving up. And then we come to Charmaine's mindfuck.
Yes, and this is a like you said, this is where when Carmela did the come here waitress or whatever the little hand signal she did, that was the moment Charmaine decided she was going to tell Carmela what happened between her and Tony.
Which makes no sense because they're going back 25 years. And here's the thing, though. Okay, Charmaine explains, Tony and I dated. We had sex while you and him were on a break. Okay, fine. And Carmela actually gets mad.
Yeah.
How are you going to be mad that 25 years later your husband had a girlfriend?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, that's like me telling my wife now that in 1997 I had sex with some girl in high school,
and
her being mad about it before we even knew each other existed. Yes,
right. So Carmela's pissed,
but Charmaine knew that was going to hit a nerve. She did it on purpose
because it wasn't so much as I'm telling you I slept with your husband. It's I'm attacking your womanhood. You think you're this big, strong Italian mobster's wife. Meanwhile, if what she was trying to convey was, I could have your husband in 3 seconds if I really wanted to.
Right.
And I guess that's Carmela's ego got in the way there, and it was like, oh, maybe she's right. But, and then we come to the final act of the Jewish father-in-law and Tony, which is the total and utter double cross that Hesh again warned Tony about in the early months. He tries to give Tony a payoff of, I think it was 10 or 15 grand, which was still a lot of money back then, but he doesn't want to give him 25% of the hotel because you scared him into giving me the divorce for my daughter. He needed to do it on his own. Well, goddamn it, how was they supposed to get it?
Right.
Why would you hire a mobster if you didn't want me to put fear in his heart? And he's yelling, "Oh, my son was right. I created a golem, a Frankenstein."
And this is kind of where the Italian mobster learns, maybe don't mess with the Jews when it comes to money.
Right.
But the Jew also learns, these guys are pretty aggressive.
Right. And he pretty much just gives in for what they want. He gives them their 25%, which Tony's ecstatic. And he runs to go tell Jackie Aprile, we're in the hotel business. And now Jackie finally looks sick.
Yes, and that's what I wrote down here. And this is where we see that Jackie is going downhill very fast.
Right.
He's not focused on what Tony's telling him about the business. He's not focused on what they have done together for years and years and years. All he cares about is the fact that he doesn't think his temperature's right. They need to take his temperature again, the thermometer. And
right.
So the double juxtaposition here is not only is Jackie not any longer focused on the business. He's very much in his last moments, last days, because now none of this matters to him. None of this money matters. None of this business matters. It's a sad thing, and it's a very deep thing. It's at the end of your life, all that matters is your life.
Right. Your children you're leaving behind, your wife, your regular family. You didn't care about the mob anymore. He didn't care about a hotel or who was going to take over for him when he was gone. He was worried about himself. And look, I'm not going to liken my situation to what he went through, but like 2 years ago when I got sick and they told me I had heart failure, I didn't give a shit about anything but my children and my wife at home.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? I didn't care about work. I didn't care about anything else. I cared about my grandbabies and my children. And when they finally told me you're okay, we were just going to give you, you're going to get a blood pressure pill and a this and that. I thank God. And I was like, okay, time to turn over a new leaf. So he didn't get that second chance. He didn't get to beat it. He didn't get a chance to go into remission. He went from super healthy to, oh God, he's about to die.
Right.
So it was a big thing to swallow for him, and I'm sure it hurt. And this is where you finally see Tony go human for a moment and go, oh God, this is real, and I have to face it. There is no more pretending, oh, he's going to make it out of this. He's fine.
Right. Yep.
It's
time for acceptance. Hey, it's part of the theme of the show. Acceptance. Denial, anger, acceptance.
Right. Then Junior and Olivia are having their bitch fit about Tony putting her in the old folks' home.
And here comes our evil, sly, conniving Livia.
Yes.
Yeah, Christopher. What did she say, Christopher? There was something nice Christopher did for her.
Oh yeah, he planted her flowers for her.
Yeah, so you should let him live. And then he says something about Junior says something about the other kid, which of course is Brendan, and she's like, I don't know him. Essentially what she's saying is, I don't know him. She's saying, I don't care if you fucking kill him.
Olivia called to hit on him, right?
Yeah.
Let Christopher live, but take the other kid out as a warning. Let Tony know what's going on. And Junior smiles like if he just got orders from John Gotti, not from his sister-in-law.
Right, exactly.
You know what I mean? It's a shit-eating grin of, oh, really? I get to do what I want? And like, dude, she's a little old woman in an old folks' home. Who are you listening to right now? And Tony mentions this to him later on. You know what I mean? You got fooled by a little old woman. And now you can't stand it. You know what I mean? So,
Chris gets to shit his pants.
Oh, God, yeah. Well, first Tony goes back to Milfy and talks about Jackie again. And he's finally got a little bit of acceptance in his heart.
Yes.
And this is where she finally comes off to him that the painting does mean death and things ending. And, he read it into it correctly, which doesn't do him any solace. He's not happy about it.
Right.
He gets mad again. He has another bitch fit, throws something, and walks out again, which is his MO. He could only make it through 3 or 4 sessions with her before he threw something or yelled at her.
Right. Yeah.
So, but I guess that's a part of therapy. I've never been to therapy before. I don't know if that's how you have to do it. You know what I mean? So, and then we get to, Christopher is being beaten up by some guys at the dock and shits his pants. Which I guess if a guy had a gun to my head, yeah.
He thinks he's busted about the crystal meth.
Right.
Because the guys are Russian, and of course, Tony's mistress is Russian, so Chris thinks that there's a connection there. When in actuality, Tony doesn't know jack shit yet about any of that.
Tony never finds out that he gave her crystal meth.
No,
but he automatically, his guilty conscience can do. And the fact that they grab him from an old Mr. Softy truck makes it even more hilarious because he just wanted some ice cream.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He wasn't doing anything. He wasn't killing anybody. He wasn't doing a drug deal or anything. He was buying ice cream. They grab him. They take him to the docks. They beat the shit out of him. And he's trying to plead his case. Please, they were going to rape her. Please, I didn't want her to go to Jefferson Avenue. Tell Tony I'm sorry.
Man, these guys are like, we don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Who's Tony? They didn't know anything about it. And this is the thing that I never understood. We're going to get, this is a little bit of a spoiler for the next episode. Christopher comes out of the hospital and Adriana asks him, did you really soil yourself when you got, when they were holding the gun to your head? The only people on the dock that night were the two guys beating him up and Christopher. So
Right.
Who the hell told her?
Who told her? Yeah, who told her?
Pants?
Like, was the nurse at the hospital like, can you take these shitty underwear home and wash them? I don't know what happened there.
You know what I mean? And he's sitting there wondering himself, who told you? How did this get out? You know what I mean? So, and then while that's going on too, Mikey is walking into Brendan's house, who's taking a tub.
Yay!
Brandon's in a tub. Why, I don't know. And of course, Mikey was never my favorite character, but I liked Mikey for one reason. He was a movie guy.
Yeah.
So he walks in, cocks the gun, and goes, "Hi, Jack. Bye, Jack."
Bye, Jack.
Shoots Brendan directly through the eye. And the douchebag is dead.
Yes. And we are all happy about that.
Yes.
I mean, just Brendan's death in this episode gets it 5 out of 5.
Right. He's gone. So,
but
of course, Meadows having her concert. She's finally through everything. She's great. No one's the wiser that she was on crystal meth for a few days.
I did write down that this tells you about Tony and Carmela's relationship.
Mm-hmm.
When Tony goes to the concert, when he shows up at the concert, he tries to hold Carmela's hand and she won't hold his hand. And we know that she is doing that because she's found out the shit about him and Charmaine.
Right.
Tony is like, he doesn't even care. So that tells you about their relationship. Like, oh, she's probably got one of her hairs up her ass again.
Right.
Won't hold my hand. But she has a specific reason why Tony pretty much doesn't give a shit. He's there to see his daughter anyway.
Between what went on with Jackie, what he had to put up with the Jewish father-in-law, his mother still being in the old folks home and feeling bad about that. He didn't get, you don't want to hold my hand? Fine, fuck you.
Yeah.
I would
Whatever.
have felt the same way.
I'm here to see I'm here to see my little girl anyway.
Right. It's not about you tonight. So the episode ends with that. And it's definitely Brendan's death alone is a 5 out of 5, but the whole episode as a whole, with Jackie getting sicker, Junior and Olivia making their vengeful pact to take out Tony, in the beginning of that, it's a 5 out of 5 for everything all around.
I totally agree. I know the last episode I gave a 4.5 out of 5. I also gave this one a 5 out of 5. There's great drama. There's great story development. There's great character development. There's great humor. This show just all around was a great episode of The Sopranos.
I agree. And coming up in episode 4, we lose a very important cast member, but the power struggle begins.
Yes.
So I hope you guys that are on board are definitely ready to start seeing the battle of nephew versus uncle and how deep Livia has her claws into Junior. And we want to thank you guys for listening. For anybody who is listening, drop a message on the Facebook page on the WNR. Let us know what you think. If you have any questions, anything we might have missed or glossed over, or if you just want to tell us to shut up, feel free. We're always down to listen.
We're not gonna shut up, but you can tell us. We're like the stubborn Jewish guy in this episode. We're not gonna stop.
We're not gonna stop. So thank you guys for joining us. Nate, any parting words?
I just want to thank everybody for listening to the first few episodes of the show. We hope that we continue our listenership and continue to grow. And we're just trying to do different things here at WNR now. I know for many years we've been focused on pro wrestling, and just there's so many other things that we can talk about. And,
Right.
you know, with Archie and I here on the Sopranocast, Aaron and I on the Justicast, just so many other things that we can talk about and discuss. Even considering right now the We Can't Wrestle podcast, doing more non-wrestling stuff on there. You know, we can talk about wrestling, but we can talk about stuff that isn't wrestling.
Right.
But if you love wrestling, definitely check out Reliving the Extreme.
Yes.
And all the other shows here on the network. Again, like I said, we're evolving, we're changing, we're trying to do things to grow our sphere, I guess is the word.
Right.
Because we're not just wrestling guys. So, but yeah, I appreciate everybody's support, and I appreciate the early support for this show, and I hope you're enjoying it, because I am damn sure enjoying doing it with my friend, Mr. Mitchell.
And I am enjoying it as well. And anything we can do to continue to grow the network and give the fans what they want, whether that be The Sopranos, Justified, maybe one day David Gold and I will do a Married with Children podcast because we both love it so much.
Yeah.
Nate might want to jump in on that. Who knows? Football season's starting back up. Maybe once we get involved in that, I might grab a buddy and say, hey, let's talk about football. We all have so many different interests, but also so many of these things in common that there are a plethora of things we can talk about with you guys. You just got to let us know what you want to hear.
Absolutely.
So, if you get involved, if you listen, you comment, and you let it, you get, you get active, then the sky's the limit to where WNR can go. So, thank you once again for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back next week with episode 4 of season 1 of The Sopranos on the Sopranocast.